Let's talk about how to release trapped emotions from the body and how to heal all trauma. Now, you might be listening to this and thinking, I have too much trauma. I have experienced so much, maybe to the point where you actually dissociate, where you are completely numb. And you might think for yourself, it's not possible for me to heal that trauma. It's not possible for these emotions to be released from my body because I can't even feel. I'm here to guide you and help you because I was at a point where I was in such a dissociative state that I couldn't feel even the good emotions. I was so numb for most of my life. And even in therapy, I wasn't feeling and I wasn't healing and I wasn't releasing what needed to be released in my body. And it wasn't until I learned about this and started applying it to my life that my life drastically changed. Drastically. And it did not take a very long time. So I'm saying that to encourage you. This is for every single person. And the reason it's for every person is because we all have trauma in our bodies. We all have experienced trauma. We all live in an imperfect world with imperfect people who hurt us because that's how life works. We all get hurt by people, and at times we hurt people too. It's life on earth. It's just how it is. So this topic really is for every single person, but it helps in every single area of your life, whether you're a parent who wants to be a better parent, whether you're just a person who wants to feel better and lighter in your life, or you're a partner who wants to treat your partner better or have a better relationship. It's for every single person. And I believe every single child should grow up understanding this topic and understanding how to regulate their emotions. So let's talk about it. Number one, what even are emotions? Think of it like this: emotions are energy in motion. When you feel an emotion, when you feel happiness, you feel it moving throughout your body. Maybe you're not even aware of it, but the emotion moves throughout the body, it motions around the body. So when I say trapped emotion, what I mean by that is the emotion that arises in your body when it does not feel safe to motion around the body, it becomes trapped. So let's dive a little deeper into this. The emotion that arises in the body, think of it like a ball of energy. Think of it like molecules that are swarming together to form a literal ball that has weight inside of your body. Now, what's healthy and what's supposed to happen is those molecules are supposed to move around the body and release and come out. Things that can cause us to trap emotions all comes from our head. It comes from us thinking it's not safe to feel the emotion. It comes from other people telling us to not feel the emotion, such as when you're a child and you're getting yelled at by a parent and they're telling you, don't cry, or you want to feel tough in your head and you're saying, I don't want to cry, I don't want to show them my weakness. Comes from being shamed from feeling emotion. So all of these are subconscious thoughts that are telling us it is not safe for me to feel this emotion. So the body reacts to those thoughts and it acts accordingly. And so when the emotion arises in the body, it doesn't motion out. So what happens to us when we have these emotions trapped in the body, these balls of energy inside of the body that don't come out? Over time, when it happens enough time, or even if it's just one time and the emotion was so large, the emotion can be as large as a watermelon inside of you. This ball of energy can be that large inside of you. If it stays in the body and doesn't come out, it can manifest itself as some pretty horrible things. I'm not saying this to scare you, I'm saying this to educate you so that you can tell yourself and you can remind yourself that it is safe and it is healthy and it is good to release these emotions. So some of the things that might manifest itself are illnesses, diseases. It can show up on your skin as eczema. It can show up as acne. It can show up as hair loss. It can show up as bloating. It can show up as digestive issues. Almost any health issue you could have could be a cause from a trapped emotion in the body. Now, how do we decipher whether or not we have a physical problem and it comes from an emotion or it comes from actually being sick because of your environment or because of things you eat or actually having acne because of your genes or this or that? Well, you want to learn about that part of the body and what emotion is held in it. So every single part of our body holds a different emotion. For example, like I said earlier, if you're getting shamed by a parent to not speak your truth, and if you're getting yelled at and you want to so badly let out that frustration by saying something back, or just saying I'm upset right now, I'm hurting, but you can't because you're getting yelled at by that parent. It's happened to every single one of us. Um, have you noticed when that happens, you have a sensation in your throat, an uncomfortable sensation? That is the ball of energy in your throat that's trying to come out. The reason it's in the throat is because we speak from the throat. And when we can't speak, the emotion is held in the throat. Another example would be the shoulders. If you feel a lot of pressure in life and you're feeling the emotion of stress from that pressure, or just feeling the intensity of it, you may get physical pains in your shoulders because it's like there's a weight physically on the shoulders. So it's super fascinating. I can't go over every single area of the body because it would take too long. But if you can feel the problem and you can sense that the pain or the problem is coming from an area of the body, look up what emotion is held in dot 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 wherever you're experiencing it. What emotion can manifest itself as acne? What emotion can manifest itself as digestive issues? Acne can come from the fear of being seen. So you try and hide yourself, and the body produces acne to put up this almost shield to not allow yourself to be seen the way that you want to be seen. There's so many areas that this can show up, and just recognizing this and moving forward to say, okay, when this sensation comes in my body and when this feeling comes in my body, I'm going to figure out if it's an emotion or if it's related to something else. So once you look that up, you can ask yourself, okay, I feel this pain in my shoulders. Have I been experiencing pressure in my life right now? Do I feel like there actually is a weight on my shoulders? And so ask yourself this, journal about it, try and figure it out. You may need help from somebody else, and that's okay if you do. And once you do, you can say, yeah, maybe I do feel this pressure in my life right now. So you can feel the emotion and you release it, and then the pain goes away. Now, if this actually is caused by like a gym injury or something like that, the pain isn't going to go away because it's not related to the emotion. And so feeling the emotion won't help you at all. All right, so let's dive deeper into how to actually feel these emotions, even if you're in a dissociative state. The biggest thing with feeling emotions, it's not to do with the tool. So when I say tool, I mean therapy, I mean EMDR, I mean tapping, I mean just talking to somebody, journaling. These are all tools that all do one thing. They all help us release emotions. There's not one that's better than the other. Some just work better for other people based on their personality. But the biggest thing is not the tool, but it is feeling safe in your body to be able to release emotion through that tool. So, how do you feel safe in the body? You might say to yourself, I don't logically think that it's not safe to feel emotions. Of course, it's safe to feel emotions. Your conscious brain thinks that, but your subconscious brain may have experienced so much shun from the world and from people in your life whenever you felt emotions, that your subconscious brain might think it's not safe. It's not good. It it frightens me to the point where I fear my survival, right? So these are things that can cause your body to feel unsafe. It could be just anytime you were shunned as a child. One of the biggest things that I see is people being shunned as a child and not being able to feel the emotion because of it. Even if you weren't shunned as a child, if you shun yourself, if you have this high expectation of yourself to be emotionless and to be maybe head of the house, or maybe you're a boss and you need to show up in the world a certain way, you can shun yourself from feeling those emotions because you don't think it's right to do so. Obviously, there's a time and a place to feel emotions. We don't need to go around crying when it's not appropriate to, maybe at your work, but feeling emotions is essential for every single human on the planet. So, how to allow yourself to feel safe when you have these beliefs that stopped you in the first place? For me personally, when I logically learned about the things I just told you about how emotions can create so many problems in the body, that switched my brain to say, "Oh, I need to start feeling emotions." And it's actually can be a really bad thing if I don't. So that's what began the feeling of safety in my body, is logically understanding why I needed to feel the emotions. And then I changed my perspective on emotions. And this is absolutely essential if you have a very hard time feeling emotions. You need to change your perspective on emotions and about what they are and whether they are bad or not to you. So ask yourself, how do I view emotions? Do I view emotions as weak? Do I view them as bad? Write out the words that come up to you when you ask yourself, how do I feel about emotions? And then you need to rewrite the narrative. See, the thing is, a lot of us, most of us, view emotions as a bad thing. We view them as something that shouldn't be shown to the world, and we view them as something that don't benefit us to release. But it literally could not be further from the truth. So, there's a story I'm going to share that really shifted my perspective on emotions. And as I started thinking about it more and applying it to my life, it got easier and easier and easier to feel emotions. So when I began my journey of feeling emotions, I couldn't feel. And after I would say about 2 months, it got so much easier and I was able to cry. I was able to have a single tear. And then about 4 months, I was able to cry even more, and it got easier for the emotions to come up in my body. And now I'm at a place where if I cry, it's like a hose. There's just so many tears coming out, and it's so much easier for those tears to start producing in my body. It's so much easier for the emotion to come up and out of my body. It's one of the simplest things in the world for me, and I do it very often. I try to cry very often and release emotions almost every single day, because emotions arise in us every single day, and like I said, if they don't come up in motion out of the body, they stay inside of the body. So let me go back to what I was saying, the story. All right, so there was a man in a house, and he heard a knock on the door, and it was some visitors. So, as you do with visitors, you open the door, you welcome the visitors in. And the visitors might come, they might chat for a while, you hang out with them. But like all visitors go away after some time. So, you don't expect he did not expect the visitors to stay the whole time, expect them to stay for a short period of time, and then they left. So, very short story. But now let's view it a different way. There was a man who had emotions. The emotions knocked at the door, and he treated them like visitors. He allowed the visitors to come into his home. You allow the emotions to come into your body and feel them and motion through the body. So you allow them, you welcome them. You welcome them with love. You don't shun them. You don't hate them. You don't say anything bad to them. And when the emotion comes, just like the visitor, you know that the emotion and the visitor always leaves. It doesn't stay forever. So this is where I like to almost change the story up a little bit. The visitors who came to the man's house had a very important message. And if he didn't open the door and welcome them with love to come into the house and to spend time with him, he would have never received that very important message that was specifically about him. And this is the thing with emotions too, is they often have very important messages for us to understand and to know about ourselves, to go forward in life um, in a better way than before. Because this is the whole reason we have emotions. Emotions are God given, and they're given for a reason. They're not for nothing. Emotions tell us something about ourselves that is essential to know. If we feel anger about a certain topic, it could either be, okay, we have trauma around this topic, needs to be healed, but a lot of the time it's, okay, I'm passionate about this. If we never had anger about certain topics, things wouldn't change. We wouldn't help those in need if we didn't have the feeling of empathy for them. We wouldn't do so many good things that we do if we didn't have the emotions to motivate us to do it. So every single emotion is there for a reason, and they're not to be shunned, they're to be loved and accepted, and we are to know when they arise that they're going to go away. So allow yourself to let go of shunning yourself, of putting this pressure on yourself to look and be a certain way, and to let go of the words and the pain of the past that caused you to feel as though you can't release those emotions in the first place. All right, so trauma in the body, how does this relate? How does trauma relate to feeling emotions? Healing from trauma requires us to feel. We feel to heal. We feel the emotion that should have arisen. Arose? What word is that? So when we go through the trauma, maybe you had an emotion arise. There we go, arise. Maybe you had an emotion arise, or maybe you didn't. If the emotion wasn't released enough from the body, no matter what time and place you are, whether it's years after the trauma, if it wasn't released enough, it's still in the body and it needs to come out. And the way to release the trauma from the body is actually feeling that emotion again. So, of course, uncomfortable. But what did I say about the visitors? They don't stay forever. And they have a very important message for you that will help you better your life. And if you don't allow the visitors to come in, you will never experience it. So, I'm going to share a little story I was given permission to from actually 2 days ago. So I help people with releasing emotions in the body when they have a difficult time doing it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Um, I just love the transformations that come from it. And 2 days ago, I was helping a woman release an extreme shame wound in the body that stemmed from trauma. And so when I help women release, or people in general, release the traumas from the body, I like to test first how their own body would like to do it, but some of us are in such a dissociative state that we don't know how to do it, but I test first. So I asked her, I like to make it a very calm, um, safe place. A lot of people feel very uncomfortable releasing emotions in front of other people, so I asked her to close her eyes and take some deep breaths and just calm the body and almost just forget that I was there. And I asked her to share some beliefs that she has around this shame, and she had a very hard time doing it because most of us are very unfamiliar with even diving into the past and releasing it. And so I just wanted to see what her body said first about it. And at the beginning we're always uncomfortable and it's not a familiar thing to do, so she had a hard time with it. So I said, okay, now I come in, I'm going to guide you, I'm going to help you. So how I do this, it changes for every single person. It's more of an intuitive approach on my end. I can sense whether or not they need a certain tool or not. And with her, the way I did it is I started saying things that I believed in my core that she believed about herself. And when I would say the thing, I would have her repeat it and tell me exactly where in the body it was showing up. And so maybe I would say something like, I feel unworthy of dot dot dot. And I would ask her, is this showing up in your body? And she would say, yes, I'm feeling it in my shoulders. And I'm like, okay, I understand. So that means that she has this pressure of perfectionism in her life and she's not reaching that standard of perfectionism. So she has this pressure in her shoulders. And I kept going, I feel like my words aren't worthy of being heard. And then she felt in her throat because she couldn't speak up because she felt like her words aren't worthy. And we were just going and going and going. And I was telling her to breathe into the sensations of your body, which is a tool you can use to help release the emotion, is actually breathing into the sensation itself. And so as she was doing it, the emotion was motioning around the body and moving to different parts, which signaled what the emotion was and what needed to be released. So I was gathering data in my head of what the emotion was and where it stemmed from and this and that. So all that to say, it took maybe 30 or 45 minutes. And it's an intense 30 or 45 minutes. This is a deep wound from childhood that was never released inside of her body. And she had all these core beliefs about herself that were showing up in the world and manifesting itself as her showing up as a person who she wasn't, who she actually really wasn't. And she was holding things in, and she had these pains. And all that to say, at the end of it, when she was able to breathe into the emotions, when she could feel the emotion, when she could get it out of her body, I asked her at the end, the version of you 30 to 45 minutes ago, the version of you who believed she was unworthy, the version of you who yada yada yada, how long ago does that feel? In my head, reality is it was 30 to 45 minutes. But she gave me an answer that I love to hear and that I always see. And it's the reason why I ask it. So she said to me, that feels like such a long time ago. And I smiled and I was excited because it's one of my favorite things to hear. And I was like, it does, doesn't it? What happens when we release the trapped emotions and get the trauma out of the body through feeling it and allowing it to motion around and out is you become a version of yourself that is completely different to the version of yourself before you healed it. So, yes, you feel physically lighter. Yes, the pains in your body go away. And yes, the problems that arise in the body because of these trapped emotions go away. But you just feel like a completely different person because you have completely new beliefs about yourself. And the body is transformed so much in that process that you almost don't even recognize the version you were 30 to 45 minutes before releasing the emotion. And this is what happens to me too all the time, is when I release deep rooted emotions that have been in my body for so long, when they go away, you just feel like a brand new person, and you can change the beliefs you have about yourself with so much ease because the trauma is now out of the body. And you might say, but that's not possible to release trauma that quickly. I've been going to therapy for 7 years and I was never able to release that trauma. So I was in therapy for, I was on and off in therapy. I had three therapists. I was on and off for maybe, I think maybe 3 or 4 years. And I never felt safe in the body to release emotions. So I never had any releasing with my therapist, and they kind of guided me to release emotions, but not really. They A lot of the time, this is no shame on therapists, but some therapists can almost have you dwell in the emotion so much, but you don't actually heal it because you're just like analyzing and dwelling it. And that's, you need step one. You need to analyze and understand where your traumas come from, but the traumas need to come out of the body then too. There's no point in analyzing and dwelling in the trauma if you're never going to get it out. It's just coming to the surface. You're becoming aware of the trauma, but then it's not actually coming out of the body, and that's where the healing actually happens. And so I studied this myself and learned how to do it, and I had a little bit of help, and the and then I was able to move forward in life being able to do it myself. And that's what I want for my clients. I want them to understand how to do it themselves so they don't have to depend on me or a therapist in their everyday life to get the emotions and traumas out of their body. I want them to feel safe and have the ability to do it themselves consistently, because we're always going to experience more pains. We're always going to experience more trauma in life. And it's about whether or not you release it and heal from it. So, releasing trauma and releasing emotions from the body does not need to take years. It is the biggest limiting belief. It does not need to take years. It may initially take some time to feel safe and have the ability to feel the emotion and release it from your body, but it does not need to take years to heal. I promise you, it does not need to take years. And it can actually be it can be so much quicker than you think. And when you move past the trauma, when you move past the emotion, sometimes you need some tools. And I give my clients a lot of tools to say, okay, this is my new self who no longer has this emotion in the body, who no longer has this trauma. Here are some things I can tell myself. Here are some things I can do to make sure I don't go back to the old self, thinking I still have the trauma, thinking I still believe these things about myself when I don't. So sometimes you might need help and guidance with those things. And another story is there was a lady who was speaking about how she had an extreme abandonment wound. So I'm telling you, this is for every single trauma. This is why I said all traumas. She had the abandonment wound, which so many of us have. If you've experienced neglect in your childhood, you'd likely have the abandonment wound, and it's a horrible wound to have in relationships. You go into your first relationship and you leave it like, I don't know who I was, and I don't know anything about that person because I don't know what just happened. You turn into this desperate person, because you're just trying to fill that void, and you're trying to feel that love that you didn't feel as a child, and it can be really horrible for relationships. Anyways, so she had this abandonment wound, and the a really great way to heal is actually getting triggered. I love when I get triggered because getting triggered allows the emotion to arise so I can really feel and get it out. So in her marriage, she got triggered and the abandonment wound started arising in her body, and so she went into her room, she cried for about 2 hours, and she never had the abandonment wound again. She released the emotion so much in those 2 hours, probably screaming, crying, I'm assuming. Been there, done that. It's an amazing way to release screaming, crying, screaming into a pillow, go on a drive and scream. I'm telling you, get that emotion out. And she never had the abandonment wound again. She never got triggered by the abandonment wound again. So some people say, go to your codependency meetings and spend years doing this and go to these meetings and meetings and meetings and therapy and therapy and therapy and therapy and dwell and analyze, when sometimes you just need to release it. And of course, the analyzing can help us realize what we need to release, but the most important part is the releasing. So I'm going to end this video with just a couple tools when you allow yourself to feel safe enough to release the emotions that can help get it out. So I now like the tool of breathing into the sensation of the emotion in the body. I really like that tool now. But if you had told me that when I was dissociating, I would have just laughed because it wasn't possible for me because I was so numb. I was like, I don't even feel a single sensation in the body. How am I supposed to breathe into it and feel it? So I like that now, and a lot of people are at a place where they can't do that to heal. So breathing into the sensation, closing your eyes, breathing into it until it goes away, that allows it to motion around and out of the body. Number 2 is journaling, writing about the emotion. Don't write to impress somebody. Don't write to impress yourself. Don't write as if you have to read it to somebody. Write as if it's just you, yourself, and God with you releasing the emotion on paper. Okay? Just write everything you feel, everything you need to say. Maybe write a letter to the person that hurt you. This can be really powerful. You can even burn it after as a representation that I'm no longer available for this and it's not in my life anymore. So journaling is amazing. Um, Things like EMDR and EFT can be really amazing for a lot of people. They are just tools to help release the emotion out of the body. So you can research those two things if you're interested. A therapist usually does that. I do some tapping with my clients. I like to do that. And then screaming, especially if you have the pain in your throat, or if you've experienced so much in your childhood where you had that pain in your throat where you couldn't speak up and it still arises today. Scream into a pillow, okay? Make sure no one's home, and or maybe you have to drive somewhere where nobody's gonna be there because you're gonna want to scream. Scream and scream and scream, and it actually moves the emotion out of your body. So these are a couple ways that I love, but like I said before, it's not about the tool, it's about feeling safe enough in your body. So that is step number 1 on releasing to heal the emotions and the traumas that are in the body. So yeah, if you like more information on this, I have some information on my website, and another tool, like I said, is to make sure if you're feeling a sensation in your body, a pain or problem. I've done it so much now, I already kind of know, but I love to I would love to look up, okay, what emotion is held in whatever part of the body, and on Google it tells you, or there's even images on Google that have images of people, and it shows, it highlights the areas of the body and what emotion they represent. Another amazing thing is there's an emotion wheel you can look up, and this can be really helpful when you're very unfamiliar with releasing emotions. You don't even know what emotions to label it as. So when you're feeling, you want to say, okay, I'm feeling shame, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. So there's an emotion wheel that has every single emotion possible, and it categorizes them. So you can sense you're feeling anger, you can dive deeper into what type of anger that you're feeling, what type of resentment, or whatever it may be. But yeah, I hope you benefit from this video. If you do struggle with dissociation, I will make a more in-depth video on that. Like I said, I struggled for most of my life with dissociation, and so I'm very familiar with the topic, and I'd love to help people with it because I know how horrible it can be to live with it, and you just don't feel like you're alive at all when you experience it. So yes, I love to help people with that. But follow along if you would like to know more about this topic and topics like this. What I speak about is all just growth in general. It's not just emotions, but emotions are a huge aspect of growth. So that's why I will be speaking on this topic, but I speak on all sorts of topics, and I speak on femininity for women, feminine energy, and just all sorts of things. So if you're interested in those things, follow along. And yeah, I will see you next time. Thank you for listening.